Even if fossil fuel emissions were immediately halted, current trends in the food system could preclude the achievement of limiting global warming. Wait a minute, you're saying that if we stop fossil fuel emissions entirely, it won't be enough? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what our report found. Different foods have different impacts on the environment. Here you can see, for example, 4 studies that looked at the emissions impact of different food choices, right? So we have choices we can make. A similar story with fertilizer use, right? You can see here, most of the fertilizer that we waste is devoted to animal feed. And the same thing with cropland, right? This arable cropland that we're using to grow food to throw away. Most of it is being devoted to growing animal feed, right? To feed cows, pigs, and chickens. In fact, most of the cropland we have here in the United States is fed to livestock, right? Is this an efficient use of our cropland? What else can we learn from these reports? Some key findings. I'm going to go over this first one. Even if fossil fuel emissions were immediately halted, current trends in the food system could preclude the achievement of limiting global warming. Now, let's hang on this quote for a minute. What is it saying? And this was a shock to me. Wait a minute, you're saying that if we stop fossil fuel emissions entirely, it won't be enough? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what our report found. Cutting emissions from fossil fuels is no longer enough. Absolutely needed, but now not enough. We now have to address our food system as well, because we've just put so much carbon into the atmosphere already. So how do we address the emissions from our food system? Let's look at this next quote. Well, many of the studies presented in this report compared a variety of strategies, including closing yield gaps, increasing resource efficiency. These are things like farming practices, they can help. Also, dietary shifts, changing your diet, and reducing food loss and waste. Now, this next part is important. It says here, finding that only in combination could these strategies achieve a sustainable agricultural future. So this is important. If we want to meet these objectives, we can't just do one of these. We've got to do all 3. Farming practices, dietary shifts, reducing food waste. And among food categories, animal products require the most land, water, fertilizer, and energy, and emit the most emissions per unit of food. What does that look like visually? Here's one of the studies that the EPA report highlighted. And you can see here a visual representation of the emissions impact from our food system and some examples of strategies that we could implement. So the way you read this chart is, on the left, you see business as usual emissions from our food system. Now, this is just from our food system. Projected out into the future, you can see it burns way past our remaining budget at staying below 1.5 degrees of global warming. Remember, that's the limit that the international scientific community has come to consensus on, saying that is a boundary we should not pass if we want to continue to enjoy the stable climates that we've built our whole society upon. And you can see it even gets dangerously close to the 2-degree mark. Okay, to the right of that are strategies to help reduce those emissions. For example, you can see here plant-rich diets, right? Eat more plant-based foods, fewer animal-based foods. That can get us the reductions we need by itself, back to 1.5 degrees. Other strategies like healthy calories. We've got farming practices here in the middle, along with food waste reduction. And on the right, we see that if we do them in combination, we can really get some serious emissions reductions to get us safely below that mark. Now, remember, this is assuming that we've eliminated fossil fuel emissions, and that's a big if. If we don't tackle fossil fuel emissions, we're going to have to do even more with our food choices.